Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes for more to log in, but welcome to the Entrepreneurship Task Force's Rapid Response Sessions, our weekly webinars that we've been hosting during COVID-19. We'll just give it a couple more minutes. Thank you. Okay, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I see that it's stabilizing. So welcome everybody again. We are having a very special edition of the Rapid Response Session today, crossing over to feature the Governor's Task Force on Business and Jobs Recovery Special Initiative around small business. So really looking forward to the conversation today. Just a little background, Entrepreneurship Task Force, of course, is a working group to share ideas and solutions to propel our next generation of innovative entrepreneurs, as well as the SMBs in our space, focusing on trying to make sure they have access to the resources to grow or scale. And then, of course, the Governor's Task Force on Business and Jobs Recovery, hope many of you have heard of it, was launched in April to bring together leaders across diverse sectors to come together and chart a path forward on recovery in the wake of COVID-19. And that is co-chaired by Thomas Dyer and Anna O'Leary, the Chief of Staff for the Governor, and is really working to try to develop specific actions that can help businesses recover as fast as possible. So, to that end, Governor Newsom proclaimed California for All Small Business Month for the month of July, really to recognize small businesses and innovative startups and the essential contributions they've made over time to our state, and calling each of us to do our part to help California's diverse entrepreneurs and small businesses recover and thrive. We know that small businesses are so critical, that supporting them strengthens all of us in California. They employ nearly half of the state's workforce, 48.5%. That's over 7.2 million. They create 2/3 of all net new jobs. And so we know they're the backbone and so critical to our economy and need to be focused on. So with that, knowing the financial hardship that they've faced during the pandemic, contending with the closures and decreased revenues and challenges accessing capital that's been out there. And we've seen that disproportionately affect our minority founders and small businesses. Despite all of that, we know that they've really inspired us with their tenacity to survive during these times. And we've all been compelled by their ability to change and really take the actions necessary to keep going and meet the moment. So for those reasons, we're really trying to amplify and support small businesses during the month of July in partnership with the Governor's Task Force on Business and Jobs Recovery. And I think that one of the most impressive things about this work of the task force is that there have been strong leaders who have been willing to just roll up their sleeves, come together and try to take actions that can really tangibly affect small businesses, large businesses, the whole economy as it recovers, the workforce, and all of our communities at large. So with the Small Business Subcommittee of the Governor's Task Force, we launched Calling All Californians, Shop Safe, Shop Local, which is a campaign to lift up our small businesses, their employees, and the neighborhoods that they serve, truly to rally Californians to spend safely, use the power of their wallets, to help small businesses while also amplifying their resources to support smalls and help our diverse neighborhoods thrive. So we've had over 20 corporate partners offering free website for life from GoDaddy as an example, or free mobile apps for restaurants from our own Irma Olguin, who is on our Entrepreneurship Task Force. And she's offering this great tool, free e-gift cards from Square, free business posts from Nextdoor, who we're so honored to have with us here today, Sarah Friar. So we can't wait for you to all meet these incredible leaders that we have joined with us to just talk about small business recovery, discuss actions Californians are taking right now to reverse some of the trends of business closures, to be able to help them capture revenue during closure and get capital to survive. So with that, I'd like to start by kicking off and introducing Sarah Friar. She's the CEO of Nextdoor, as you all may know, and which is the world's largest private social network for neighborhoods. Prior to Nextdoor, Sarah served as the CFO at Square, launching its initial public offering in 2015 and adding 30 billion in market cap. She also served as Senior VP of Finance and Strategy at Salesforce. She's had executive roles at Goldman Sachs, McKinsey. She sits on the boards of Walmart and Slack, and just overall a thoughtful leader whom we're lucky to have so committed to small business. Sarah?
Thank you, Isabel. It's great to be here, and everything you said resonates. So I'm really not going to spend too much more because I think that we need to get to the meat of it. But for sure, when local businesses thrive, we know that communities thrive. Local businesses are such bastions of their neighborhoods. And we know right now during COVID that neighbors really want to step up to help. And that's part of the driving force of why it was such an easy decision to say yes to come work on the governor's task force. For example, we've seen about a 17x increase in neighbor conversations about wanting to support local businesses during COVID-19 and clearly everything that's happened subsequently. Over 70% of our neighbors are saying they will frequent local businesses more. And so we need to kind of grab that sentiment and that energy while it's really top of mind for people. We also see that small businesses are having to change their offerings. So over 30%, over a third, say that they have done something different. My local restaurant is selling groceries. My local hair salon, really all I've done is buy shampoo and conditioner from her. And one of these days I will get a haircut, but she's had to pivot. And 76% of them are relying on digital tools. So it's almost like 2-3 years of a trend to ongoing digital has been now condensed into a 3 to 4 month period. People have a lot to learn, but they're learning quickly. And that is the beautiful thing about small business is their tenacity, their perseverance, and they're willing to kind of try anything to be creative to make sure they stay in business.
Thank you so much. We're also joined, and if you joined us in the past, we've had Everett Sands before. He's the founder and CEO and board member of Lendistry, which you know is a CDFI lender, fintech that's focused on small business lending, especially to underserved small businesses. He scaled Lendistry, and you know he's one of the few minority-led CDFIs and CDA small business fintech lenders in the space, and a national leader in terms of SBA lending, as well as other programs for supporting small businesses, technical assistance, et cetera. So glad to have this national thought leader when it comes to small business financing on. So Everett.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's great to be here with you and also with Sarah. And you know, I think Sarah kind of hit the nail on the head, which is we expect, we trust, and we support the resiliency of our small business community. And we know that they'll get through. We know that it'll be a bumpy road. We're in it with them. And what we've tried to do at Lendistry is we've tried to focus on two things. We've tried to be very intentional in looking at the underserved small businesses, which for us, that's defined as those that are Black and brown and also women owned. And we've said, hey, how do we help them? And we tried to stay very, very focused on giving them guidance. Majority of the time we've been spending has been related around statewide programs and federal government programs. I believe we'll get into that a little bit. But you know, those have been the things that we're trying to help them with. We want them to have that 1-2 punch of equity and debt as they get through this. And we recognize that sometimes equity is better than debt, and sometimes it's vice versa, depending on how that business might be set up. But again, appreciate the time to be here, and very excited to help our businesses, whether they are making it through with less revenue, or as Sarah mentioned, pivoting, or you know, making additional adjustments to get through this time we're in right now. Thanks, Isabel.
Thank you. Thanks so much. You know, we know that with hospitalizations going up, ICU cases climbing, increased case rates, you know, trends needed to be reversed to save lives. And so the health and safety response was paramount for the state of California. And so we know about the recent closures that had to be implemented statewide, bars, indoor dining, as well as more recently the specific county closures, continuing with trying to focus on indoor environments. And, you know, to date, there are, I believe, 32 counties on the monitored list, which includes, you know, over 80% of the state's population. So a majority of the large counties. You know, we'd already seen in April that there was a 22% drop in active businesses, not to mention the overall revenue hit. And so, the state, through its network of small business centers, has been committed to helping small businesses access capital they need, learn about industry guidance, and implement it, and help with strategies. Nextdoor is one of our corporate partners on the Shop Safe, Shop Local initiative, as well as an important resource for small businesses as they move to technology and move to engaging digitally with their communities. And beyond that, Nextdoor has been super active in co-leading the Shop Safe, Shop Local initiative. So very supportive of small. So, knowing that Nextdoor has this incredible reach into neighborhoods, I've heard from multiple businesses they're using it, keeping in touch with Nextdoor. I know that as well that you're tapping into the pulse of small business at Nextdoor with some great data and insights globally. So I'm just wondering, Sarah, if you could comment, how can small businesses and as well as those supporters of small businesses leverage that community connections that exist to survive, and especially how should those trends in consumer demand during COVID-19 guide small businesses into the right pivots and the right tools to be effective?
Unmute myself. So it's a really good question, because I think this is where community is everything, right? There's two sides to this marketplace that's coming together. So I think one of the first things we saw in Nextdoor actually as COVID-19 hit was what I would call kind of help to give. It was very much oriented more around neighbor to neighbor connections. Like, can I go get groceries for you? Can I go pick up a prescription? But then very quickly you could see neighbors saying, how can I help local businesses? Because the local businesses, these are your friends, they're your neighbors, right? They're not kind of a big corporate. There's people where your kids go to school together. They've maybe been in the neighborhood for decades. They might be multi-generational. My dry cleaner is literally a third generation of the family now running that dry cleaner. So neighbors really care. And I think that's kind of one of the first things for businesses to think about, is that there are people there who are putting their hand up to say, how can I help you? On the other side for businesses, right, clearly one of the first things you always want to do, regardless of your scale of business, is to hear from your customer. And I think Nextdoor can be a place, and there are other platforms that do this, by the way, so I'm not biased here because I just want small businesses to survive in this conversation. So ask your customer. And so the dynamism with which small businesses need to be communicating right now has never been higher, right? Previously, maybe you did an ad for a new menu item, in the fall, or maybe you did an ad to say, hey, we're slightly changing our opening hours. But today, it's almost on a daily basis. Customers want to know, are you open? If you're open, how are you doing it safely? How are you keeping your workers safe? How do I know if I come to eat outdoors in your restaurant, because you can't be indoors at the moment, what's going on with your kitchen staff? Are you doing pickup? Are you doing delivery? And so I think that over communication, it's actually something I say to all business leaders full stop right now, but definitely to all small business owners, is how are you communicating? And don't be afraid to ask. You can easily put a poll into a Nextdoor feed that just says, hey, what would you like to see? What more could we do, right? One of the ways that our local restaurant pivoted to groceries was this thinking about what else were people willing or likely to buy from them. And it was really about them wanting to keep their supply chain also healthy. I'll give you another example. I think when you can get the power of the neighborhood who wants to give back, but we're all kind of stuck in our house right now, so things we might have done physically are not available to us, how can you harness that? So our local donut store actually did donuts for essential workers. So I could go online, buy a big box of donuts for the essential workers at the hospital. They would deliver it. And really what they were doing was making sure that they could stretch their cash flow enough to keep their employees employed. They were doing something really great for the community, but they were doing really something great for me too, which was allowing me to give back. And again, that all came from conversations with customers. So, in practicality, today on Nextdoor in California, you have 4 free business posts per month, which is actually quite a lot, 1 a week. You can put that out. You can actually ask for feedback. Beyond that, you can do a local deal. I think a lot of people are kind of finally getting into more digital advertising, potentially for the first time. The great thing about digital advertising is it's way more specific than putting on a flyer or the things you might have done historically. It'll actually perform better for you. And then beyond that, we're giving you a dashboard. So we're really showing you, here's what's working. We'll give you examples, like in the donut shop example, We'll show you what are other restaurants like yours doing that are being successful. What are communities like yours doing that are interesting and new? And I think people are just looking for great ideas. But I'll go back to where I started from. Neighbors really, really, really want to keep you in business right now. So don't be shy. And businesses, just be creative. Like, try something, doesn't work, keep on pivoting, because there's magic there when you can make it come together.
Thank you for that. Well, I think that adapting to technology is something that businesses have resisted in the past, and we see them doing it so much during COVID-19, which is exciting, and I think can really help them thrive during this time. So thanks for all of the work and the willingness to share these free offers with small businesses. Pivoting a little bit to capital now, because Lendistry is on the front line seeing the small business financial impact of COVID-19. And we know that nearly 50% of small businesses had 15 days of cash flow. Nearly a third polled recently said cash flow was going to be the biggest issue going forward in the months ahead. So I'm sure that, Lendistry as an SBA lender, as a PPP lender, as holding multiple, loan and grant programs for different places around the country, you're trying to make a dent for smalls into this program on PPP that many couldn't access. And so kudos to you for that. Everett, what are you seeing that small businesses should be prioritizing in terms of immediate actions, financial strategies or other important adaptations to the marketplace for survival and to set themselves up to be grant ready, lender ready, what have you, to survive during this time?
Yeah, I think one of the unintended consequences or maybe even benefits to what we're going through right now is business owners get to take a break from what was their normal routine. They have to create a new routine. But one of the things that's been interesting is we've seen a lot of business owners be able to start getting their documentation together, which leads to the answer to your first question. Is the first thing the business needs to think about is how do they replace their cash flow, right? And so in replacing cash flow, there's a couple of options where everything started. And so that would be SBA's PPP program, which still has over $100 billion. If for some reason you have not applied, I would definitely encourage you to apply immediately. For those who have applied, I would encourage you to go to your local politicians and say, hey, is there any way we can re-up? Because that is one of the things that's being considered. Nothing set in stone. And then, from the PPP, which I would say was somewhat of a Band-Aid, just let's call it what it is. And then what came was CARES Act. And from CARES Act, or the distribution of CARES Act funds, each state got $1.25 billion based on population. And several counties that had 500,000 or more people also received a distribution, let's just say that, or a grant. And so whether we go to the top of the state or close to the top of the state, the city of Sacramento is issuing their grant product right now. If you go towards the southern part of the state, the county of Los Angeles is doing their grant programs right now. You've had multiple big name companies, whether it be Lowe's, whether it be AT&T, several of them have issued their own individual grants. So I think it is optimal and it is important for the small business owner to look to see what they can apply for. And that's why I started with the paperwork, because there is no such thing as, let me just raise my hand and get it. There's always some paperwork item that they have to provide. And then from that, you're going to see a couple things. You're going to see the state's program through iBank, which is a disaster recovery program. You're going to see SBA introduce CARL, Community Advantage Recovery Loan. That's coming up. You're going to see Main Street start to open up a little bit more. I know most banks are not involved, but I do believe that those guidelines will get relaxed and more banks will jump on board. So I think for any business owner, you got to think of this like your business, right? When you started, you had a couple options. You got a little bit more mature, you had a couple more options. And as you went down a cycle or got even more mature, there's additional options. And I'm saying all this to say that there's no silver bullet. There's literally several things that the business owner is going to have to do to get through this. But I also want to point out something that Sarah mentioned, and you have too, Isabel. Maybe we should just rename this whole seminar called Pivot. Right? Because, no matter what, we have a restaurant owner she's now selling beer and wine as part of her delivery services because she recognized the margins that were in beer and wine. And again, she doesn't have the sit down, the ability to have her customers sit down. We've had logistics companies that have opened up what they are able to deliver. And so they're doing, they're now doing better because of all the home deliveries. We've had Uber drivers that are now delivering for Instacart, right? So it doesn't really matter what the pivot is, but I want to make sure I point out that to sustain the business, there has to be a decision made to figure out where the money is flowing, what the business owner has as his or her resources, and then to start to move towards that. Because I think initially, and no harm to any business owner, we all thought this was a short-term thing. We'd be out of it. Q2, we'd be back to normal. And now we are recognizing through the information that's coming through the CDC, that's coming through the school systems, that, hey, this is going to be a little bit longer than any of us would ever want, and then any of us can ever imagine. So thanks, Isabel.
Thanks for that too. And just to follow up, I know, it's difficult to track all these things. Is Lendistry, tracking the outcome of a lot of these, different programs across the state, or is there any place that businesses can go to easily find grants?
Yeah, we're trying is the answer.
Yeah, same here.
So our nonprofit partner, which is called the Center, is really doing the majority of that for us. They're providing the technical assistance, the business advising, help the businesses getting ready for the different applications. So they're trying, and to be clear, the key word is trying, because literally almost every week something new is coming out, which is a good thing. I think most of that has been driven, unfortunately and fortunately, by the social unrest. But there are new programs that are coming out pretty frequently. So we're doing our best to stay on top of that. That being said, a business owner is always welcome to call us, and we're always welcome to push them in the right direction. I do know that some of, if you take, for instance, the city of Sacramento, they started with 7.5 million, I believe, and now they're up to 15 million. So it's not only a combination of new programs coming out, but I want to encourage business owners to keep looking at the programs that might have run out of funds, because as we get closer to December 31st, which is where the CARES Act allotments need to be spent by, or they have to be returned to the federal government, you're going to see the programs that ran out of money get replenished, because naturally a state or county won't want to send that money back, and hopefully none of them have to.
Right. Thank you. And we track it. Everyone should just go to business.ca.gov/shop safe, shop local, and find our local centers, our resources. They are on the ground monitoring what's available in your local community. So that might be the best way for you to track it. This is a California for All Small Business Month, as declared by Governor Newsom, and that means an economy that works for everyone. For my office, it means inclusive entrepreneurship, small business ecosystems that work for everyone. So diversity, you focus on women and people of color is really important. And I know, Sarah, in your experience founding Square Capital, and as well as a co-founder of Ladies Who Launch, I know that you've dove deep into this issue of diversity as well. And so, I know that as you talk to small businesses and medium businesses in the organizations that you've engaged with, what did you see as the major blockers to raising capital as a small business, and especially those disproportionately affected? And how would you counsel owners and operators to work around those blockers?
Yeah, so it is definitely a huge problem. Like, all small businesses don't carry a lot of cash flow on their balance sheets. They don't have a lot of buffer. But for underrepresented minorities, for women, for our Black community, for example, they have no buffer because they effectively haven't been able to fundraise in the way that other businesses are. So it's a complete double whammy, and I'm really anxious right now, frankly, for many of those groups. I think just in terms of very tactical what to do's, and one place I would highly recommend going to, a little biased here, but is ladieswholaunch.org. It is a nonprofit I helped co-found, but there's just some great resources on there. In particular, if you go to the education piece of the website, we have an LWL Academy, and you'll see a ton of curated tools, top tips. We've done a lot of webinars ourselves with small businesses, many of them in California, but actually around the globe, including Australia, London. We've talked to a lot of different folks. I think the first thing that we heard in the beginning of COVID, and in some way as we now go through a surge again, it still holds true, which is protect your cash flow. You really need to make sure that you can carry water through the desert. And so unfortunately, that means some really tough choices. You may have made some of those tough choices already, but going back at it again, that was words of advice from Helen Russell, who's an amazing founder and CEO of Equator Coffee here in California. One thing that stood out to me from actually another amazing woman, Tashora Jones, who's the St. Louis treasurer. So sorry, I'm talking Missouri now, but it's good to get our info from across the nation. She called it get your bail team together. And what she meant by that was your banker, your accountant, your insurance agent, and your lawyer. And don't be shy. Like, those people are talking to lots and lots of other small businesses, and they're helping carry great ideas. And you just may find sometimes someone who's not in your business with all of the emotion that is in when you found a business, but an experienced, educated outsider can sometimes see things that you can't see. And might be very helpful when you talk to someone like Lendistry in ways that you might not have thought about in raising capital. Making sure you have your team right sized to get through this, right? It's better you survive. And are there other ways that you can utilize your team? Like delivery is a great example. I've always seen restaurants be creative. Like the dishwasher is also the person that does deliveries up until the point where there's enough dishes to not wash. And I've always loved that about small businesses because they're just so economically rational. So I think there's lots of good business tips on the fundraising side. I think be very clear about your business model. And frankly, be confident too, right? One of the things I've found throughout my life in fundraising is people reflect how you enter the room and how you talk to them. In this case, how you enter the Zoom, I guess. But if you come across as being uncertain, if you kind of think small, they will meet you there. And so instead, how can you just be really kind of non-emotional, really factual about your success, about what you're going to be able to do with that investment, and think big about your business, right? Certainly don't start small there. I think there are other tips that go beyond business, which I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, because I do think in all of this, particularly small businesses, we need to think about our mental health, just what are our sanity at the moment. And I think the things I've heard throughout, mostly from women entrepreneurs, because that's who I tend to spend my time with, but making sure you're doing things like have a routine, stay active, get outside. I think fresh air is really important right now with a mask, but making sure you're getting that kind of mental and physical health. Reaching out, making sure that you have a crew, right? Most of us have a board of some sort, but what's your personal board of directors? And who is it that's giving you some of that kind of mental resilience as well? I think that's important too. And so I don't want to take away from things that are sometimes considered soft, but they're actually how you build resilience to keep going through what, as Everett just said, all of us thought would be maybe a couple of months and maybe a much more extended period of time now.
Thank you. Those are such valuable tips. Good thing this is recorded, everybody. You'll be able to get this again and walk through it. Everett, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to get this question and ask you to respond similarly in terms of your tips for what people should be prepared to do and you know, framing their mind for when they're out capital hunting at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think capital hunting is kind of like what we're going through right now, right? You're hoping for a sprint, and then you find out, wow, I'm in a marathon, right? So you think the first pitch is there and it's perfect, and and then next thing you know, your final presentation becomes version 600 or whatever it becomes these days. So I think Sarah said it eloquently. Like the mental health, I actually might push it up the ladder to top importance right now. For a variety of different reasons, right? I mean, whether you're me who has no idea to handle kids at home, or or you're somebody else who's trying to think about your business, right? And so I think I would just really, really strongly encourage people to have that anchor support through friendships, to find your mental outlets. My personal one is I am on my Peloton bike quite frequently, more than I ever was before. And then the third thing I would say is that this is, and I mentioned this before, I was obviously talking about paperwork, but this is really a time where small business owners get to kind of hit the pause and reset button. There were several things you thought about in your business that right now you might be able to study. Right now you might be able to, remodel, re-strategize, replace. The unfortunate consequence of this is there's a lot of people laid off. That means there's also a lot of talent for the business owners to consider. So, we have to, we want that glass half full. And so that's will be what I would encourage the small business owner to be thinking about right now.
Thank you. Sarah, any closing thoughts?
I just think that, I mean, we could talk for hours on this, but I would kind of get to your resources. It's been such a pleasure to learn so much more about the Cal Office of the Small Business Advocate and all the stuff that is available on websites like GoBiz. Please go to our Shop Safe, Shop Local site too, because there is just myriad resources there. So instead of, pounding the pavement of like a Google search, it's all done and curated for you. So I would just say, make use of what's in front of you. Ask questions. I think people really want to be there for you right now, particularly your neighbors, and just good luck. I mean, it's tough times out there, but we all want to have your back as much as we can.
Everett?
Same here. We're all in this together. We were in the beginning, we will be through it, and we will at the end. So we support you. And thank you, Isabel, and thank you for all that the state office is doing for small businesses.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining. And I know, critically amid this ongoing emergency, the best thing we can do is do all our parts to keep small business employees, owners, and others safe by wearing face coverings, trying to drive down these numbers so we can protect our small businesses. So practice safe shopping, follow those public health protocols. And throughout the month of July, join us to celebrate the determined spirit of small businesses out there and help them. So go to business.ca.gov/shop safe, shop local. And engage with us on this campaign, and we'll continue to lift all of your dreams and ensure that we are California for all. So thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna hop. Everett, lovely to meet you.
You too, Sarah.
All hands. Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.